For decades, Canada and the U.S. enjoyed a stable, mutually beneficial energy partnership. Canada sent oil, gas, and electricity south, fueling American homes, businesses, and industries. This relationship was the backbone of North American energy security, with both countries relying on each other to keep the lights on and the economy humming. The U.S. eagerly bought it all, becoming Canada's biggest customer by far. Billions of dollars flowed across the border every year, supporting jobs and growth on both sides. For many, it seemed like this partnership would last forever. But now, that comfortable arrangement is unraveling. Tensions have been simmering beneath the surface, and recent events have brought them to a boil. Canada is eyeing new markets in Asia and Europe, rethinking its dependence on its southern neighbor. The world is changing, and so are global energy demands. Canadian leaders are asking, why put all our eggs in one basket? The trigger? President Trump's return and his aggressive use of tariffs, making it riskier than ever for Canada to rely on the U.S. as its main customer. Suddenly, the threat of trade wars and unpredictable policy shifts has become a real concern for Canadian exporters. Suddenly, Canada is planning to divert its most valuable exports, oil and gas, to new buyers across the Pacific. Massive infrastructure projects are underway, with new pipelines and shipping terminals designed to connect Canada to booming Asian economies. This isn't just a business move, it's a strategic shift with huge geopolitical consequences. Canada is forging new alliances, negotiating fresh trade deals, and positioning itself as a global energy player, not just America's supplier. The U.S. faces the prospect of higher gas prices as Canada looks east, and the old, predictable trade relationship is turning into a messy, complicated breakup. American consumers and businesses are already feeling the pinch, with uncertainty rippling through the market. It's a story of trade, tantrums, and the real possibility that the next time you fill up in Minneapolis, you'll pay more because Canada is selling to Beijing. The ripple effects could reach far beyond the gas pump, impacting everything from manufacturing to food prices. The fallout from this economic divorce will be felt on both sides of the border. Politicians, business leaders, and everyday people are bracing for a new era of uncertainty and competition. The era of quiet North American energy cooperation is over. What comes next could reshape the continent's economy and its place in the world for years to come. So, what did President Trump do to spark this crisis? It all started with a series of bold and controversial moves that sent shockwaves through the global economy. After returning to office in 2025, he threatened a 25% tariff on nearly all Canadian exports, then imposed a targeted 35% tariff on goods not meeting strict USMCA rules. This aggressive stance was meant to pressure Canada into compliance, but it had far-reaching consequences. The goal was to force companies to buy American and protect U.S. jobs, but the result is chaos for businesses on both sides of the border. Factories are struggling to keep up with demand, and supply chains are in disarray. Small Canadian firms can't keep up with the complex rules, getting priced out of the U.S. market. Many are facing closure, unable to compete with the new regulations. For now, oil and gas are mostly exempt. Trump knows taxing Canadian energy would send U.S. gas prices soaring. This exemption, however, is a temporary relief in an otherwise tense trade environment. But the threat of future tariffs is enough to push Canada to seek new partners. Canadian businesses are now looking to Asia and Europe to diversify their trade relationships and reduce dependency on the U.S. The message is clear: relying on the U.S. is too risky. The uncertainty and instability have made it imperative for Canada to rethink its trade strategy. Canada is preparing for a future where it's not held hostage by American trade policy. Investments in new infrastructure and partnerships are underway to ensure a more stable and diversified economic future. The old rules no longer apply. Canada is charting a new course, one that promises greater independence and resilience in the face of global trade challenges. With the U.S. market turning increasingly hostile, Canadian exporters are facing a new reality. Tariffs, shifting regulations, and political uncertainty have made it clear that relying on a single trading partner is a risky bet. For decades, the U.S. was the obvious destination for Canadian oil, gas, and other resources. But now, the landscape is changing fast. Canada is pivoting to Asia, setting its sights on the world's fastest-growing economies. The Pacific is no longer a barrier, it's a gateway to new opportunity. Trade Minister Mary Ng is leading a high-profile push to sell Canadian oil and gas to energy-hungry countries like Japan and South Korea. These are nations with booming industries and growing populations, all searching for reliable, long-term energy partners. These nations want stable suppliers outside the Middle East, and Canada fits the bill. With its reputation for political stability and environmental standards, Canada is an attractive alternative for Asian buyers looking to diversify their energy sources. The strategy isn't just about finding new customers, it's about rebalancing Canada's entire trade portfolio. Diversification means less vulnerability to sudden shocks and more resilience in a turbulent global market. New pipelines and LNG terminals on the Pacific coast are in the works, making it possible to ship energy west instead of south. These massive infrastructure projects are reshaping Canada's economic map, connecting resource-rich provinces to the world. Europe is also in Canada's sights as the EU looks to replace Russian energy with Canadian LNG. The global energy crisis has opened doors for Canadian exporters, and Europe's demand for secure, ethical energy is only growing. Building this infrastructure is costly and faces opposition from environmental groups and local communities, but the political will in Ottawa has shifted. Leaders now see energy exports as a matter of national interest and security. U.S. tariffs have made diversification a national priority. Canadian businesses, once comfortable with the status quo, are now racing to adapt and compete on a global stage. Canada's message is clear: if you build tariff walls, we'll build new doors. The country is determined to open fresh trade routes and forge new partnerships no matter the obstacles. The era of one-sided dependence is ending. Canada is stepping out of America's shadow and embracing a more independent, globally connected future. Canada is determined to chart its own course, no matter the obstacles. The journey won't be easy, but the resolve is stronger than ever. The world is watching as Canada rewrites its energy future. Every decision, every deal, is being scrutinized by global markets and international partners. The stakes couldn't be higher. For Canada, this is more than just business. It's about securing its place in a rapidly changing world. You'd think Trump would welcome Canada's move to find new buyers, but he's furious. His tariffs were meant to force Canada into concessions, not drive it away. Canada's pivot undermines his vision of U.S. energy dominance. He wants cheap, reliable Canadian oil, not global competition. If Canada sells to Asia, the U.S. loses its discount and must pay global prices. Trump sees this as a personal slight and a blow to his image as a master negotiator. The White House is threatening further retaliation, including possible energy tariffs. It's a high-stakes game of chicken, with both sides daring the other to blink. Trump's anger only convinces Canada that it must reduce its U.S. dependence. The relationship is more strained than ever. This trade war is a lose-lose for both countries. If the U.S. slaps tariffs on Canadian energy, American gas prices will spike. Refineries are built for Canadian crude, and alternatives are costly. For Canada, the 35% tariff on non-compliant goods is already hurting small businesses, forcing layoffs and halting U.S. expansion. Large corporations can adapt, but smaller firms are being squeezed out. Canada is ready to retaliate with its own tariffs, targeting politically sensitive U.S. products. The result: pain for American farmers and manufacturers, especially in key electoral states. Decades of integrated supply chains are being disrupted, raising costs and reducing North American competitiveness. The trade war is undermining the foundation of the economic partnership. All this for a political strategy that favors confrontation over cooperation. Everyone loses in this fight. The U.S. is deeply dependent on Canadian energy. 62% of its crude oil imports come from Canada, more than all OPEC countries combined. American refineries are optimized for Canadian oil. Switching sources isn't easy or cheap. The U.S. also relies on Canadian natural gas and hydroelectricity, which power everything from homes to data centers. If Canada diverts exports to Asia, the U.S. faces a supply shock and higher fuel prices. Finding alternatives means dealing with countries like Venezuela or Mexico, each with its own challenges. Losing Canadian energy would end an era of stable, secure supply. Trump's tariff threats risk pushing Canada into China's arms. A strategic blunder for the U.S. China would gladly buy Canadian oil, gaining leverage in global energy markets. The U.S. would be trading a reliable partner for a strategic rival. The stakes are enormous. As the trade war heats up, Canada faces its own political upheaval. In January 2025, Prime Minister Trudeau and Deputy PM Freeland both resigned, citing disagreements over trade policy with the U.S. Their exit created a power vacuum and uncertainty about Canada's next move. New leadership could mean a tougher stance against U.S. tariffs, or a more conciliatory approach. The unpredictability in Ottawa adds another layer of complexity to the crisis. American officials now face an untested Canadian team, making negotiations even trickier. But public anger in Canada is strong, pressuring any new leader to stand up to U.S. bullying. The political shakeup has hardened Canada's resolve to diversify. Over-reliance on the U.S. is now seen as both economically and politically toxic. While the U.S. and Canada clash, China stands to gain the most. If Canada redirects oil exports to Asia, China becomes a primary customer, securing a stable energy source from a G7 nation. This shift boosts China's leverage in global energy markets and reduces its dependence on volatile suppliers. Ironically, Trump's America First policy could hand China a strategic victory. Every barrel Canada sells to China instead of the U.S. shifts the global balance of power. Experts have warned the White House, but the warnings have gone unheeded. If Canada and Mexico permanently diversify exports to Asia, the North American energy fortress could crumble. The U.S. would lose privileged access and have to compete with China for resources. It's a classic case of unintended consequences. As 2025 ends, the future of North American trade and energy is more uncertain than ever. Will Trump impose tariffs on Canadian energy, triggering a crisis? Or will cooler heads prevail? The 2026 USMCA review looms, set against a backdrop of mistrust and economic pain. If Canada secures new Asian contracts, the shift could become permanent, even if tariffs are later removed. The trust that defined U.S. Canada relations is eroding, and once lost, it's hard to regain. We may be witnessing the end of easy North American integration. The only certainty, the old predictable partnership is over. The fallout from this breakup will shape the continent for years to come.